Number 1.
Michael Jefferson Adams was born on 28 March 1969 in Abilene, Texas. He was last seen on the 8th June 1987, meaning he has been missing for over 33 years. At the time of the disappearance, Mike, as he was known to his friends, was 18 years old. Mike was between 6'0", circa 182 centimeters, and 6'2", circa 188 centimeters, weighed between 145 pounds, circa 66 kilograms, and 155 pounds, circa 70 kilograms, had blonde hair and blue eyes. He also wore contact lenses and at the time of his disappearance was wearing a white long-sleeved dress shirt, black pants, black socks, and black shoes. Today, Mike would be 51. Adams was a talented and well-liked individual, kind, witty, funny, generous, smart, hard-working. These are some words people used to describe him. He had many hobbies, such as drawing, golf, tennis, drumming in his high school marching band, as well as performing ride-alongs with a Buffalo Gap police officer during his senior year of high school. He attended Cooper High School, which he had just graduated from 5 months early, achieving excellent grades. Mike was due to move to Lubbock, Texas, to start classes at Texas Tech University, where he planned to pursue a career in architecture. Unfortunately, Mike vanished just 3 weeks before he was due to move. Mike Adams was working as a part-time clerk at M-System Grocery on 12th and Mockingbird Street at the time of his disappearance. He had worked there for 2 years and was reportedly well-liked by his colleagues. Mike worked at the store 3 times a week and had recently been given a promotion to a more managerial-type role. Supposedly, some staff members were not too happy about this as they felt they had been overlooked considering they were more senior members of the team. 2 nights before his disappearance, as Mike was locking up the store, he witnessed a stranger taking supplies from the back stock room. As Mike had the keys and there was no sign of a break-in, the stranger must have been let in by another staff member. His supervisor at the store said that Mike seemed unusually anxious, and when they left the store that night he took a baseball bat with him as he walked across the car park to his car. She did not question him as she did not want to make him embarrassed. To my knowledge, the baseball bat has not been identified, and it is not known whether it was his own bat or one taken from the store. On his next shift, Mike spoke to Steve Turner, his manager, about the theft he witnessed in the stockroom. Steve and Mike did not get along, and Mike was reportedly thinking about reporting Steve to the company's head office for treating staff badly and causing low morale. His manager reacted angrily by saying Mike should not have been back there as his job was out front and dismissed his claims. Did Mike see something he wasn't supposed to? On the 8th June 1987, the day of his disappearance, Mike was sent home from work by his manager for not wearing the appropriate uniform. He was wearing khaki pants instead of black. When Mike got home, he vented his frustrations about his manager to his father and stepmother. As Mike was getting changed, he forgot his wallet and left it in his bedroom. Mike returned to the store and part-way through his shift he asked his co-worker, Cheeto Alarton, for some assistance. Mike claimed that there were some guys in the parking lot causing trouble and he was in need of some help. As Cheeto was one of the younger members of the team and capable of taking care of himself, he was usually the one to go to if any trouble was being caused. When they both got to the parking lot, nobody was there. Cheeto teased Mike a little about the situation, and they headed back into the store. Come to the end of the shift around 11 p.m., Mike locked up the store with Cheeto, and they both headed towards their cars. Cheeto claims that Mike opened the trunk of his red Datsun 280ZX, opened up a cooler, and grabbed a couple of beers for them to both have. They then both headed home, driving close to one another most of the way as they both lived in a similar direction. On the way back, Mike and Cheeto were playing around in their cars, revving their engines on the quiet streets. Mike was laughing and seemed to be in good spirits at the time. When Mike reached the turn-off to his road, Peach Street, they both parted ways. Mike headed down the street, which Cheeto says was empty at the time. Mike's red Datsun pulled onto his driveway around 11:30 p.m. The headlights from the car woke up his stepsister, and then the headlights of another car followed shortly after. She decided to look through her bedroom window to see what was going on. Outside, Mike was leaning into the passenger side window of a dark-colored two-door General Motors vehicle, possibly a Monte Carlo, with triangular opera windows, idling on the street outside his home. Police believe there was only one person in the car. For what reason they believe this, I do not know, although it is possible that there could have been two or more people within the car. Thinking nothing of it, assuming Mike was talking to one of his friends as he seemed normal and was not apprehensive, his stepsister went back to bed. The next morning, Mike's car was not in its usual spot. Usually, when Mike gets back from a shift at work, he swaps around his car with his stepmother's so she can get out to leave for work in the morning. Mike did not get the opportunity to do this, as his car was parked in the same spot that his stepsister had seen the night before. Thinking this was strange, his parents went to his room only to find Mike was not there. The only thing they found was his wallet, which he had forgotten when getting changed earlier in the day. It is not thought that Mike entered his house upon his return before he went missing. Little did his stepsister know at the time, but that was the last time she would ever see her brother. Over 30 years later, Mike has still not been found. After a family petition, Michael Jefferson Adams was declared legally dead in 1994. He is thought to have been murdered, and the murder case remains open to this day. Abilene Police Department began the investigation into Mike's whereabouts. Not much evidence or information was found. Police spoke to his colleagues at M-System. Some of them stated that Mike had been edgy for a few days and was the same way the day he went missing. The beers that Cheeto claimed Mike offered to him were not found, and no cooler was found in the trunk of Mike's car. While this could suggest that Cheeto was not telling the truth, police believe it is possible Mike may have taken the beers with him with whoever he left with, suggesting he left on his own free will. One interesting thing to note is that although not teetotal, Mike was not really known to be a drinker. There were reports of a suspicious vehicle in the area shortly before Mike returned home. The vehicle described was similar to the one Mike's stepsister witnessed. It reportedly had a short in the headlights, causing them to flicker. Two people Mike knew had a similar car to the one described. One of them was a friend and former classmate, and the other one was his colleague, Cheeto. There have been several theories and rumors bandied around over the years. At the time, the rumor was that Mike's disappearance was drug-related. Mike was anti-drugs and called a narc by his peers at school. Not long before Mike graduated, there was a big drug bust at his school, and Mike was suspected of telling the authorities. At the time, the Abilene Police Department stated they did not believe his disappearance was drug-related. I am not sure if they have changed this stance in the years gone by. Another rumor was that Mike had been killed and his body was dumped at Lake Fort Phantom Dam, 30 miles, circa 48 kilometers, from his home. No evidence has been found to suggest this happened. It is alleged that Mike was taken to a house nearby, led to believe it was a friendly visit. Whoever was there intended to teach him a lesson or prank him, but things got out of hand and Mike was killed. Again, there is no evidence to suggest this actually happened. Supposedly, Mike had broken another person's arm some months before his disappearance. I cannot find any evidence that this is actually true. Something interesting to note is who was in the parking lot when Mike and Cheeto closed up. Some people have said that John Bowles, another co-worker of Mike's, was also there. He had reportedly told Mike in the past that if he ever needed someone to disappear, then he should let him know. John Bowles moved to Florida shortly after Mike went missing. Abel Gonzalez was another person who was theorized to have been there. It is not known how he was linked to Mike. Some claim that Abel had also worked at M-System, although this has not been proved, but he was supposedly a person of interest. In 1996, shortly before Abel Gonzalez was due to speak to a private investigator about Mike, he was killed when he drowned in a rafting accident. There have not been many updates since Mike went missing, and unfortunately, the case does not seem to get much coverage. The case was featured on Missing Reward in 1991, and his family unsuccessfully tried to get Mike featured on the Unresolved Mysteries television series. In a 2009 news segment on the case, Mike's father claimed he believed Mike had been attacked to teach him a lesson, but things got out of hand, and he was killed. His father also claimed that a couple of months after he went missing, he had a dream where Mike said to him, "Help me, find me." Sadly, Mike's father, Howard Adams, has since passed away without knowing what happened to his son.
Number 2.
In August 1985, David Lovely, 19, was traveling from California to Massachusetts on a cross-county move with his mother, Jackie Aubett, and his 18-year-old sister, Allison Lovely. Allison and Jackie were driving the yellow Ryder truck, and David was riding his motorcycle. Jackie and Allison checked on David every 30 miles. The motorcycle began having issues in Wyoming, so David told his family he would drive on to the next exit to find a gas station, hoping there would be a mechanic available. They agreed to meet at the next rest stop. David never showed. Jackie and Allison spent the night in the Ryder truck, hoping David would catch up to them. Jackie phoned her sister, who said she spoke with David on August 5. He told his aunt his bike broke down in Fort Bridger, Wyoming. He had slept along the highway side and pushed his bike 3 miles up the road to the Bingo truck stop, now a Travel Centers of America truck stop. David met a rough-looking man on a Harley-Davidson at the truck stop who fixed his bike and got it running again. Initially, David was scared of this man, but the guy was harmless, according to David. David told his aunt he would ride on to Rock Springs to meet up with his mother and sister, and that he would call when he got there. However, he never reached his aunt or showed up in Rock Springs when his family arrived there. Jackie and Allison drove on and stayed in Nebraska for a few nights, hoping they would find David there. They asked around to see if anyone had seen him, but no one had. Jackie and Allison decided to continue driving, believing that David had gone on ahead of them and was on his way to Massachusetts. David never arrived in Massachusetts. Jackie checked with his friends, but they had not heard from him. Jackie phoned the police, but they were of little help. After all, David was an adult and could go missing if he wanted to. Plus, he disappeared out of state, making it tougher to get one agency to cooperate. On August 14, 1985, David's motorcycle was found on an isolated dirt road off South Middle Baxter Road. Thank you to Nikki and Peter for the road name correction. See comments below, in Sweetwater County, Wyoming, by a couple who was camping in the area. They called the police. When police arrived, the bike still had a half tank of gas, and the keys were in the ignition. David's books rested neatly against his motorcycle, and a blue knapsack was on the ground. The couple told police that they saw someone with long hair drive out of the area where David's bike was found a few days before. However, they could not make out if the person was male or female, but they could describe the motorcycle, saying it was large turquoise and chrome, and it had luggage or a bedroll on the back. An extensive ground search began, but nothing came from it. Police never investigated the Bingo truck stop to find out who the Harley-Davidson man was who fixed David's motorcycle. David was born with congenital defects and underwent extensive operations as a child that left him with a large scar across his abdomen, below his rib cage. He had excessive amounts of scar tissue and infections, which caused him to be hospitalized for months. He was forbidden from playing sports because too strong of a blow to the stomach could cause serious complications. His family believes that if he got into a fight before he disappeared and was hit in the stomach, the blow could have accidentally killed him. After almost 32 years, Jackie and Allison continue the search for David.
Number 3.
Alyssa Hunt and Amber Brown think about their childhood friend Kacey Perry every day. More than 3 decades ago, they were among a group of neighborhood friends from Hoover Elementary in Salem. A lot of us kids would meet up in front of each other's houses, and as you got closer to school, the group got bigger, Brown told Coin 6 News. We'd go around the church and see what mischief we could get into, Hunt said. I mean, we were only 10 and 11. My fondest memory of Kacey is probably she was hanging upside down on the bars that all the kids want to play on, Brown said. She would hang upside down, stick her tongue out at you, chuckle, and do a little cherry bomb off of it, land on her feet, laugh, and then go on about her business. But their memories of Kacey Perry don't go beyond September 1990. She vanished on a Friday night from her dad's house in southeast Portland. At that time, Kacey's dad, Mike Ferdina, told Coin 6 News about the night she vanished. We got into a argument actually, and she wanted to go home that evening. And I told her I'd take her home the next morning for Dina said then. She basically gave up then and went to bed, and I came out here and sat out here for an hour and a half or so and went back in to check in on her, and she was gone. Investigators think she may have tried to find a way back to her mom's house in the Keizer area. Tommy Perry said it was strange for her daughter to up and leave. She's never gone. She spends all her time with me, Perry said in 1990. So this is real unusual for her. Witnesses spotted Kacey at Kayano's food store, about 10 blocks away from her dad's house. Today, a Rite Aid is at this location. Detectives said Kacey took a purse with her that had clothes in it, and those items were found abandoned. Kacey Perry was never seen again. Search dogs picked up her scent at Laurelhurst Park. Flyers went out. There were sightings of someone hitchhiking near the interstate in Albany and Wilsonville, but no confirmation it was Kacey. At the time, PPB homicide detective C.W. Jensen was on the case. It's 30 years later, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, and I don't think people understand how tightly we get wound up in these cases, Jensen said recently. Some of them change our lives. Jensen still recalls details in this investigation. At one point, a man the family knew led them to a site for possible clues about Kacey. He confessed. I bet we gave him a polygraph, I can't recall, Jensen said. We drove him out to the Kelso area, up in the woods. Took him out there, but it all crumbled. And I think he told us at the end, I believe he said, I just kind of thought I could get some attention on this. Which he did. It was just a canard. The PPB Cold Case Unit told Coin 6 News Kacey's case has been revisited several times since 1990, even re-examining evidence, contacting witnesses and persons of interest. What do I think? Jensen said. I don't think she ran away. I don't think a stranger snatched her off the street. That kind of narrows it down. In 2014, a relative's DNA profile was uploaded into a couple of national databases for missing people to create a possible match in case her remains are found one day. Perhaps all the time, that past could benefit Kacey's case. There could be someone out there who has carried the secret all these years, but either for fear or for some other reason just didn't want to say anything, Jensen said. That is my ultimate goal. The case has remained quiet. So Alyssa Hunt and Amber Brown began again trying to solve this case. We figured it's kind of an now or never to renew these efforts, Brown said. It's something that's kind of haunted both of us our whole lives. They've procured donated flyers and billboards in the Salem and Portland areas. They're working to get their communities involved in Kacey's case too. Maybe it'll spark a conversation with them to say, hey, do you remember this story? Hunt said. Maybe somebody knows something and they just didn't realize they know it. Maybe they saw something and didn't realize what they saw. Mike Ferdina recently spoke with Coin 6 News about the difficult times over the decades without closure about his daughter. He said he strongly appreciates what Kacey's childhood friends are doing. For Hunt and Brown, it's about more than helping to solve a mystery. The hope is that we get justice, Brown said. Justice for a girl, a friend, who always stands out in their childhood memories. I still, to this day, can see her poking her tongue at me, hanging upside down on the bar, you know? She was fun, she was a good kid for the most part, Brown said. Knowing that she's not sitting out there by herself anymore, that is my ultimate goal, Hunt said. To give her a final resting place.
Number 4.
I came across this case on Facebook and decided to post it here because the person who is clearly responsible has not been arrested for a crime due to lack of evidence. Still, it's irritating. Tabitha Lynn Franklin, 28, was a victim of domestic violence, survivor of sexual abuse, loving mother of 3 children, and now a missing person. On August 13, 2009, some reports say August 8, Tabitha was last seen at the home of Keith Floyd, with who she had been staying at the time. Her boyfriend, Christopher Poor, claimed he gave her a ride from Floyd's house to Poor's workplace and then left to run errands. Tabitha has never been seen again. Poor had beat the shit out of Tabitha before her disappearance, leaving her with 2 black eyes. Her sister documented the abuse with pictures, but when Poor discovered Tabitha had gone to the police, he threatened to harm her children if she didn't get the law to back off. Because of his threats, Tabitha maintained minimal contact with him. Before the beating, Poor had choked Tabitha to the point where she passed out. Afterward, she told her sister she was afraid Poor was going to kill her one day. The young woman disappeared not too long after she told her sister her fears. Tabitha's family found out that Poor had previously spent 5 years in jail for assaulting a police officer, and they are convinced that he killed Tabitha. But the police have been about as useless as a man walking into a whorehouse without any money. The department claims there is no proof a crime has been committed, even though Tabitha disappeared without a trace, and Poor had a history with the department for abusing her. Regardless, in 2014, police began digging on the grounds of Keith Floyd's home, but found no evidence. Floyd has been arrested numerous times on drug charges, including during the search when police found drugs on his property. After Tabitha disappeared, Poor sold his car and left town. Poor and Floyd are not considered suspects in Tabitha's case.